So welcome to another exploration into consciousness with the Earth Nouveau Hub. And today we're going to talk about so many things, really. I just want to give you a little bit of context, how I came up with that. It feeds nicely into the last 2 weeks we talked about timelessness and the influence of time and the symptoms of time, especially obviously Roman numeral time since the Industrial Revolution, that time structure that we have socially accepted and agreed upon, and what kind of impacts they have on the human organism, on our stress levels. And the topic for today is, I saw it in the Austrian newspaper. This title was Burnout or Bore Out. And I thought, fantastic. It was so lovely put, It's like, it's all about stress, how we deal with stress, how much stress do we actually need in order to function, and why, how is it linked to time, and how are we going to deal with stress or lack of stress as we're going into the next chapter of timelessness. So if we look at stress, I would like to, from a context perspective, look at stress. How is it related to time? And as we're now going into timelessness gradually, how we're going to deal with the hypo-stress, which again, hypotension is lack of blood pressure or the lower blood pressure, and hypertension is high blood pressure. So it's hypo-stress that we're going to talk about as well, which some people would say, oh, well, that's positive because we have less stress now. And I do remember very vividly, and I have written that in the book as well, when I got out in 2008 from corporate, the stress that I experienced by not having a structure, by not having something I had to adhere to, I had to attend to, all that freedom was really stressful for many, many years. Where I allowed myself certain addictive behaviors to take over because I just didn't know how to deal with a world, a time where I wasn't the doer. When I turned, and it took me, this is now 15 years ago, I really worked all these years from going from doing into being, that lack of stress. And there's lots and lots to talk about. So this is the context, wide, and we can play with it wherever you guys want to take it. Who wants?
Well, I think, just listening to you, Martina, talk about the transition from corporate life to, not. It is a really interesting transition, I think, that a lot of people are sort of making or trying to make right now. Right. I did the same thing, back at the end of 2011, September 15th, 2011, actually. So that anniversary is coming up shortly. But, I've been doing energy healing work ever since then. But it did take, 6 months of decompression time and healing time to, heal from the toxic management structure that I was under, but also to just readjust, right? From waking up so early in the morning and commuting for an hour, 45 minutes to an hour, right? It's a different type of lifestyle. It's a different type of structure. And I was just having a conversation with my, 25-year-old niece, and, she got married last October, and she's, in the working world. And she was saying, I hate this. I don't have time for life, to live life. And I said, yeah, I was just thinking about it. And I thought, yeah, you're an adult now because here you are, right? Entered into the rat race, right? It's like that running on the hamster wheel, right? Always trying to get a hold of something and not being able to quite get a hold of it or know what you're supposed to get a hold of, right? It's that, outside structural influence that really causes that quantum burnout. Yeah.
You said something
So
beautiful here. You said, have no time to live life. Yeah.
mhm,
Living life. I
mhm.
mean, that's such a cool question to actually ask. What does living life actually mean? You know, for me at the time, and so many people in still, living life was having a job, having a 9 to 5 job, having a not 9 to 5, a 6 to 21 hours job, you know, and being engaged, and that was life. And you know, I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm so glad I had it. And to be honest, I wouldn't even be surprised if I'd be enjoying it again. I'd probably enjoy it again if it is a subject matter that interests me, because of the intensity, the compassion or passion that we have, you know, where there is a timelessness in that as well, isn't it? Even though you
Yeah.
are adhering to certain time frames and structure of a business hours and beyond, and I've always worked beyond business hours because of the oil industry that I was in. There was never a finish at 5 or 6 o'clock. There was a 3 o'clock in the morning, the shift docked, and you had to be awake in order to make sure that everything was working. So what I'm saying is, you live with a certain stress level and you think it's normal. So what is actually living life without stress? What would that be like?
I don't think it would exist. You know, I mean, I think we're always going to be stressed out about something, right? I mean, the work that I've done over the last, well, since I left that corporate job in at the end of 2011, right? Cultivating a daily practice, right? Cultivating neutrality, right? Where I don't feel like I'm reacting, you know, I'm like choosing how to act, I'm choosing how to engage. But there's always unexpected things that cause stress in our life. You know, I mean, just hanging out for the last few days. It was my mom's birthday. So got to hang out with my parents for a few days. And you know, I mean, just going back to, oh, childhood. I can't hear you, Martina, because I don't know why.
Because I said it very light, very
Oh,
heavy.
you were just mouthing. Yes, you understand. You understand. As you're in it, right? But just like driving around in the car with my parents and listening, my mom's driving and my dad's telling her where to go, right? And this has been their whole life, right? They're bicker at each other about the direction or which lane they're, you know, I mean, it's like, okay, I'm going to breathe. I'm going to know that for whatever reason, I chose this and I chose them to, you know, help me learn my lessons the best that I can. You know, but just that small thing, right, can create unexpected stress, you know, or even just driving in traffic. You know, these are daily things that we all do and engage in. And so how much are we going to engage with that? Right. And how are we going to let it affect us? I could let that stress me out. Right. The stress is in the air, right? It hovers thick and full like the fog in San Francisco. But, you know, I mean, I choose to be amused, amused and slightly irritated by it. But, you know, I choose amusement more than stress. And that changes the perspective, doesn't it?
Jody, yeah.
I also think that a certain degree of stress is necessary for our lives. It propels us forward, it protects us. I mean, where did stress originate from? The fight or flight instinct when we were cave people hunting animals, you know? So there is a degree of just existing in life where stress propels you forward, it propels you to make changes, it propels you to survive. But then there's the unnecessary stress, like Tanya was saying, sitting in traffic. We shouldn't have those kind of stressors, but we always are going to. If stress was taken away from my life, I think I would be a bit scared at first because I would think, I'm doing something wrong. I must be living wrong if I'm feeling so comfortable. Like, I think we're so used to having that level of stress that not having it would feel foreign at first, and then we would adjust.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And it's like, it's almost like when it happened to me, when I all of a sudden had so many choices and so much freedom, it was almost like I wouldn't allow myself to be that peaceful. I couldn't do it. I remember sitting on my couch watching a movie at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and I felt so guilty. Thought, oh God, other people are at work, I shouldn't be doing that. Oh God, that kind of thing. It was really that. You were saying, Jody, you're doing something wrong. And I was like, I was doing something naughty. But then luckily, my rebel came out and said, yeah, naughty, yes. That kind of thing. But I had to work with my jester, with my rebel jester to really, But there's something else I want to know. You just mentioned stress and challenge. So I would like to ask the question, what's the difference between stress and challenge?
I don't think both are mutually exclusive, right? I mean, you can be in a challenging situation that changes your perspective, and it can be stressful or not stressful, right? I think doing a challenging task, something new, right? Anytime you do something new, it can be a challenge. That doesn't mean that it has to be stressful. It can, if you let it.
Exactly. So let's just take all the stress that we have considered perfectly valid and valuable and significant as a challenge, and destroy and uncreate all that. And then just say, hey, can we have a challenge without stress? Yeah, stress. We don't need stress. We do need a challenge, though. We do need a challenge.
Which is where I come in with my way of working in the last few years. I have to say that due to the fact that I have been based for a good part of my career in Southeast Asia, in Vietnam, where people, it's very Confucius way of living, is like you work, that is what you do, so your work is your life and your life is your work, and that's what you do. So, people there, they get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and they work their asses off and until, they go home for their family, but that is their life. So there is this saying from Confucius, which said that if you like what you're doing, you haven't worked a day in your life. And I have to say, I had to come to grips with that, in a sense that my work that I'm doing brings me a lot of joy because I'm in service, in a way of speaking, what I'm doing, in a sense that, okay, it brings me also a lot of stress, and it also brings me a lot of not being with my family and, and everything else that is around it. It is immensely enriching. So the last few years, I changed my completely way of looking at it, like you said, with the stress and the challenge. Why am I actually stressing? I do not need to stress anymore. I know how to do my work. I know what is asked of me. I know, do I do it on my own free will, in a sense, Yes, because I like my work. It enables me to live the life that I'm living. I could change, but then, it might not be the change that I really want, because that's not, yes, on the one hand, there are constraints. On the other hand, there are a lot of positive things. So how I'm looking at it currently is that I can have stress every 2 seconds if I want to. No problem at all. I just give a call to the embassy and I have 15 million stresses just right in front of me. No problem at all. Do I want that? No. So I just breathe. I breathe. Is it stressful? Do I stress? Why do I even stress? And just like you said, mentioned that I always say that I would love to go on retirement very soon, because then I would have the time to do whatever I want. The problem is that I would feel just like Martina. I would be sitting there, I would be looking at my phone. Why is nobody calling? Why do I not receive an email? Why am I not, and I would probably be stressing because of that. I'm not stressing because I do receive calls, and I do receive calls also in the evening. I have 15,000 emails to go through, even though I'm going on leave now seeing my parents. I said, I'm available. If there is anything, just let me know. But I'm giving it a frame. I'm not stressing out of it. I'm choosing to work for 1 hour per day, on things just to keep things afloat and go moving, so that I don't run into this stress. So for me, what I came, and that is also a new challenge, is like to looking at it in a way, okay, I can still do my work in the best way possible, but with also looking after me, how am I not breaking myself down under work? How am I doing my work? Do I need more discipline? What is it, do I need to, for my nutrition? And I just try to fix that all in, and then living my life when also doing my work, because my work became more or less my dharma, because that's, I want to serve, and I'm serving in a sense, it's not service, but that's what I do. So I'm like, now I'm coming more and more to grips with that I'm just like this. Now I'm sitting here with you guys having this conversation, although it is in my working hours, but I just know it helps me a lot. It brings me a lot of joy. It opens me up, and I need it, so that in 1 hour time, when we have finished, I look at my emails, I just reply, and then I go home, and then it's good, done. No stress, whatever, nothing is happening right now. Everybody's doing their job. Work has been delegated, it's been done, it's fine, it's okay. And I think that is a way of also the corporate world should actually start looking at it, that people can, enmesh more their living with their work, and then you can come to this conclusion of, if you are happy with what you're doing, you haven't worked a day in your life, because it's okay, That's my take. That's my take on it.
Absolutely, and that includes free will, and that includes choice, and that includes you looking at your level of awareness that is super high already, because so many people cannot do that. They have to cling to stress. We can say it is a way of distraction, because they're actually not willing to look at what needs to be healed, right? And then there's also a lack of unawareness, because lots of people experience stress without stressors. Lots of people experience stress without there even being a stressor. It's like the slackness, the opposite of exertion, creates more stress because of the belief system that they are not contributing enough, they are not good enough, they are, the guilt that comes in, the shame that might come in, and all those things. And in my particular case, it was a lot being an Austrian, being a very independent woman, having, been working all my life, earning my money from the age of 14 onwards, in all these different places, all of a sudden becoming a therapist, where the money that I earned before was not equally, than what it was at the time. And I had to be dependent, let's put it that way, not really dependent, but I had to learn to receive from other people. So a huge thing about bore out instead of burnout comes with allowing us to learn to receive from others, through others. And lots of people don't know how to receive. And this is part of the reason from my personal experience, that it was so difficult to let the stressors go. It stressed me out even more. The level of relaxation, I could not relax. Hi, Jen. Okay, darling. About 30 minutes, yes. So we're just talking about stress and lack of stress and how we get more and more stressed out if we don't have stress. And is in the world that we are going now, we're trying to eradicate stress. How are we going to survive without stress? And what's the difference between challenge and stress? We've just played a little bit with that. If anyone wants to just say something from their perspective before we play with other stuff.
Not only about the stress, but I do believe that is also, and I read that in a few articles, I mean, it was in a couple of years ago, to want to get rid of this thing that I'm busy, you know, I'm busy. And one of the excellent things that I saw in Vietnam was actually, they have these drip coffee filters, you know, that take like ages for the coffee to, because it is actually not about the coffee, it is to sit down, talk, and then let the coffee drip. And it was written, I'm busy, there was a thing, the whole sense was about, you know, I'm busy being not busy in a sense, you know, in this kind of ways.
Yeah. It's like I love that expression hypo-stress, yeah, coming from hypotension, means low blood pressure. Now what is hypotension? Low blood pressure is the blood doesn't go to all the parts of the body, right? Because it's too low to pump to all the places. Now hypo-stress is quite interesting because it is similar. Think about it. In a hypo-stress situation is you don't have enough challenge to challenge all the parts of your body or all the parts of your brain. And that's a bit of an oxymoron in a way, because we talk about relaxation, but at the same time, as individuals, we want to be challenged. We want to create. We are creator beings. So hypo-stress, not enough stress, I would like to reframe it as hypo-challenge, right? So if we don't have enough challenge in our life, which we sometimes misapply with stress, then there's something missing. Now, and that is perfectly normal as compulsive creators that we are. I'm not a fan of doing nothing. I'm not a fan of not having a goal, wanting to grow, because that would work totally against who we are as human beings. So there has to be a certain level of challenge, so we don't go into hypo-challenge and become less than who we are. Does that make any sense? And I think that's super, super important to look at right now, because the energies that we're going into are speeding up. So the challenges are becoming increasing, and the possibilities are increasing at the same time. So as creator beings that we are, we want to create as much as we can, right? So hyper creation, hyper challenge is a possibility now, because we're getting faster and faster and faster. We are the speed of space. We are light, we are sound, and everything in this timelessness that we're moving into, everything is becoming faster, which is a bit of an oxymoron, because now we're saying, okay, well, we need to relax. But in reality, we want to speed up. We want to create more. So how can we do that without going into the old pattern of stress? How can we do that without burnout? Jennifer.
I've got a lot of balls in the air thinking about things like that, because, you know, I have like a job that does have a lot of stress associated with it. And then I have my outside interest, which is like growing an energy business and art and other things that I don't give as much of my time to. And I've been laughing at myself the last couple of days because I'm fighting myself. Like I can feel that resistance between what I want and like almost what my pride wants. And so I have to keep rebalancing that because I don't have as much of an interest in like, I enjoy what I do for my job, but I don't really want to like climb any more of a ladder. That's not where I want to put my energy. And we're restructuring. And so people, I've said that I don't want this and I don't want this. And so when other people go into those roles, that I get like resistance, like, well, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like with the hierarchy and how you have resistance to that. And so I have to keep sitting back and like, you said what you want. If that's not it, then just relax into that, soften into that, and put your energy where you want to put it. And so I don't have a lack of stress right now, but trying to rebalance, you have to look at where the stress is coming from sometimes too. And where is the resistance coming from? Because is it coming from trying to hold on to things that you want, or holding on to where your pride is associated with that instead of letting go of what once was and putting your energy into where you want to put it into? And so I don't know, your topic is funny because I was thinking about this on the drive to the office today and recalibrating myself because I keep putting myself back into resistance of where I should be, for where, based on where I've always been instead of where I'm trying to go. And I keep trying to disentangle myself from the things that I no longer want to put my energy into. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And I've got a question for you. A little bit what we talked last time, because we got to bring our purpose into this. Yeah, not to make it significant because we don't just have one purpose, but when you have a lot of balls on the go and you're juggling lots of them and you're not entirely sure which one to play with more than the other, then I would always come in with a question: is that juggling part of your mission? Is that part of you being loyal to your mission? Yeah.
And it is. And I don't think I will ever not be juggling, but I want to hold these 8 and these 2 instead of these 8 and these 2. Do you know what I mean? So making sure that I'm holding on to the right balls.
Because as soon as you acknowledge that you are a juggler, yeah, and lots of us are jugglers. Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of clarity and focus and all of that, but some of us, pretty much all of us here, are jugglers. And if we're not juggling necessarily in this reality, we're juggling in other dimensions, right? Because the jar is open and we're going into the jar, we're going out of the jar, we're going over, so we are juggling all the time. And sometimes what helped me is juggling my mission. Yeah. I need to be in the corporate. I need to be out of corporate. I need to be a healer. I need to be this. I need to be, there's lots and lots and lots of things I need to do. And that is almost acknowledging that you need more challenges, because you would be bored shitless if you wouldn't have that many challenges. Yeah. And this is sometimes a dichotomy, because you think, oh, relaxation, letting go. It has never worked for me. I get much more productive, much calmer, much more relaxed when I have about 5, 6 projects on the go. And they also have to be different in energy. One has to be healing, one has to be family, one has to be mind, learning new things, one has to be, I don't know, body, because otherwise the boredom kills me. Now I can make myself wrong for that and say, okay, well, there's something wrong. I need to meditate more. Or I can say, hey, I'm intense. My energy is intense. I'm a multidimensional being. And I need to acknowledge that as a multidimensional being, I cannot work one-dimensionally in this reality, because it doesn't work that way, right? She's laughing her ass off here, Sandrine. Why are you laughing? Why are you laughing? Do you relate?
My goodness, I mean, this is my life. I go home now. After I finished here, I'm sorry, I've been multitasking 3 things in the meantime. I'm listening to you guys. I'm sorry. So multidimensional. And now I will go home. Now I will listen to my philosophy class. I will take notes. And then I will knit my sock, and I will listen to my audiobook, and then I will knit on my top, and then I will probably watch a little movie or something just to get rid of, and then I will just do my breathing, and then I will go to bed, and I will continue reading my book. What do you want? I mean, I cannot just go home, sit there, watch TV, and like, oh, what? I don't even own a TV, so it's not working.
It's not working. And I made myself wrong for many, many years. Now there's something not right with me. Then I realized, well, actually there is. This is exactly, and Jennifer, it's like you need to infiltrate, you need to give your energy to the corporate world, because that's part of your mission. And you don't need to do anything there. You just need to sit there with your book, be part of that group, and that is enough. It's just that I think the best way when we go into this is like, it's all about being, right? It's all about being. And I want to go back to Tanya for this one, because both of us have chosen to be with family during the Lion's Gate. And not that I have thought for 1 second I book it because of that. But of course, when I was here, I'm thinking, why the hell am I here during Lion's Gate? Now, again, stressors or challenges or mission, Tanya. Was it a stress that you came for because you needed the challenge, or was it part of your mission?
I'm just going to answer yes to all of that, because, well, I mean, I was supposed to travel in May, right? But I couldn't because I was injured. So it got pushed back, and I thought, oh, well, I'll go for my mom's birthday. That'll be fun. She'll appreciate that. So, what I see though in San Diego, there's this interesting, for me, mission based. There's a real interesting sort of, well, I mean, we see it in all the big cities, right? In the sacred geometry cities, which create that stress in the dream time space, create that stress not being able to really ground to Mother Earth. What I notice about San Diego, kind of where my parents live, it's sort of near the San Diego River, and there's this whole portal right there that has kind of all these volcanic cones around it and all these canyons, and you can kind of like drive in and drive out and drive up a canyon and sort of get lost. But the center sort of bowl that is the river valley has such deep, beautiful energy from like the Native American people that live there. I could just see like the history of all these people living and dying and, harvesting and hunting and gathering, but also the prayer, from those people on the land is very, very strong. And then there's this whole other military complex, right, that has sort of energetically surrounded the area. So, for me, some of my mission is just helping to ground higher frequency energy in those spaces where those entanglements are occurring. And so I think that's one of the reasons I was there on the Lion's Gate, just really deeply grounding, the higher frequency 5th, 12th through 15th dimensional energy in that space, so it can ripple out and affect what it needs to affect, right? Which is mainly humans right now, right? It's challenging to detangle, all the geometry of the cities, but bit by bit and piece by piece, things get detangled, but also opening up that loving energy and the connection with the land, which I think less people have an awareness of, but are coming to that place, and even having that, I had almost a 3-hour conversation with my dear niece, and you know, her energy is like a mountain. You know, she's like an awake mountain walking around. And so like looking at that generation, right? And I guess she's around your daughter's age, huh, Martina? Looking at that generation, they're trying to fall into and follow the rules that were set up by like my parents' generation and older, right? But they're not energetically that same person or people, or and don't have the same priorities, right? They have different ideas and different priorities, more spiritual, more loving, more grounded, more this energy of getting back to natural living. You know, so just to be able to hold space for her on that, I think is, you know, part of the purpose too.
Exactly. And let me add to that. You've already said the word generation. Think about it. We are here to heal our generation, right? I mean, that's the choice that we have made as peacekeepers and peacemakers, right? So it is a generational healing that we're here for. And it's really a matter of why not go back to the place you were planted in, to the place you were born into? There is a lot of healing that is still required. And it's so funny, Tanya, you're saying you had a conversation, just a pleasant conversation. I've been here and I've had this amazing people cooking for me. All I needed to do was eat their food. I haven't, you know, giving me presents to receive them. I didn't even have to say it. I wasn't high-evoluted, you know, spiritual conversation or anything. Just being there and receive the kindness. That was part of the healing. And there's a level of forgiveness in all of that, you know, and things like that. And this was very much, and of course, there's a healing for myself in this whole thing as well at the same time, you know. And I think these are little reframes to look at. This is not stress. This can be a challenge, but it can be, how can we turn those stressors or the boredom that we sometimes equate to stress? How can we turn that into a gift, into a possibility? And again, looking from the energetics rather than from the activity. How can we have activities plus possibilities at the same level without creating stress? Just creating, even challenges doesn't cut it anymore. Possibilities cuts it. What possibility can I be by just be, by not allowing myself to get stressed out?
I mean, I think that's a huge shift in perspective, right? And this is similar to the conversation I was having with my niece, where, you know, she's stressed out by adult life, right? By living in the rat race, right? And so I was trying to offer some difference in perspective, like, well, look, if you take a step back and look at it from this perspective, it might change how you're feeling about it. You know, so giving her permission, right, to just back up and play with the energetics a little bit more, instead of like thinking in this box of, oh, this is terrible, I hate my job, you know, I hate this kind of life, right? Well, look at what you're learning, right? And look at the people that you're holding space for, right? As the awakened spiritual being that you are, right? Just by being there, just by being in that space.
My intention because I'm leaving on Friday for home, and I will have to go through I mean, like, you have been visiting your parents, and a lot of breathing and just a lot of like, just allowing, you know, you won't change them anymore. I know that I have to be at 7 o'clock in the morning, sitting at the table and having coffee, breakfast, you know, because my dad prepared that, and it's 7 o'clock, and yeah, and everybody needs to be there. If I'm doing my yoga or not, he's going to call me and I have to be there. Okay, good. So I'm just going to breathe through it, and I say, that's it. So I'm going to do my yoga in a different way, whatever, you know, or my breathing exercise. But it's a thing allowing myself to just change that up, because I also noticed that how good it does me when I just change these things up, you know, and not follow that like 365 days a year of doing yin, 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 yin. No, I'm just going to change it up. What I'm also changing up this time is that I actually looked at all the tourist sites for Luxembourg and I picked out hiking ways, you know, like some a little bit more difficult, others like an hour walking through wherever. And I'm like, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. And if people would like to see me, I'm going to say on that day, it depends on the weather. Okay, if it's like pouring down, okay, I'm doing something else. And I'm just going to say on that day, I would like to do that one. If you want, you join me. And there is no obligation or at all. I'm just going to do it. I don't need you, you know, in a sense, like I'm not coming to meet you, but if you want to join me, you're welcome to, because I would like to explore. I would like to be in nature, because I don't really, although I can be outside here all the time, but there is not a lot of nature in Cabo Verde, unfortunately. So it's like, you know, I need that. I also feel like I'm really drawn to that for the moment. I need to breathe in the forest. I need to walk in the forest. I need to be surrounded by, you know, the waterways. And funnily enough, and here is where I was totally flattened by my dad, is that I asked them if they would like to go on a cruise ship on one of the rivers in Luxembourg. And it's like the senior citizen cruise ship. You know, it's the one that leaves at 12 o'clock and comes back at 4 o'clock, and you can eat in the restaurant, you know. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, I think I'm going to do that. Would you like to join? You know, and I said more in a sense like if my stepmother would like to join, you know, so that she can get out of the house for a while. And you know what? My dad said, oh, I've never been on it. I think I'm joining. I'm like, okay, good. Do you know what they are going to serve for food? I said, no, I have no idea. So you just have to, you know, we just have to go with the flow. And he said, oh, good. I'm like, whoa. If I would have asked him that a few years back, you know, never in a life he would have, you know, he would have agreed to that. It's just so funny. And I love, you know, I love to experience all of these things, like when I'm slowing down and I'm proposing things not in a harsh way, but like letting and allowing it, how much more response there is actually also coming back from things.
Yeah, because you allow people to choose for themselves, you know, it's teaching them free will. And, you know, being that space, and Sandrine, you are a huge space, you know, and that just allows people to be who they are. It allows people to find out who they are, you know, and I've had very similar situation here, because part of the reason why I wanted to come here as well was because I know there's a lot of nature here, and I know it's easy to cycle, and I know it's okay, the weather wasn't really, but I was doing the same thing. I was going for a walk every day with my umbrella. I was going for a 4-hour walk in the woods, and yes, my little brother joined, but I would have gone anyway, you know.
That's my intention as well. Mm-hmm.
And by just choosing you are allowing other people to choose themselves, and there's no stress, there's no challenge, it's just a choice. But this is what is so required, and this is part of that Lion's Gate, where the peacekeepers, the peacemakers, the inspirers, the teachers, the leaders are having to step forward now. Forgiveness for everything that happened before, because we all had our little bits and pieces, or greater bits and pieces in those environments. And this is why we keep going back. That's the loyalty to the bigger plan, because it's the soul family that we are bringing together. And that doesn't mean, you know, if you think of the, you know, the connection Earth with Sirius, Sirius A, Sirius B, and this is what AB talked about. Sirius A is the goody two shoes, and Sirius B are those people from the forced evolution. They offered their genome out to interbreed with other sort of species that are not necessarily, you know, working the same way. It is our job. It is our mission to bring them all together and to extend that forgiveness. And that's how I felt really strongly about that when I started looking at this. And there is, it's not a challenge for me anymore. It's just a choice. And it comes with more choices, because the one thing I knew that I had to do, that I have to move my body on a daily basis. When it gets a bit too much, I have to go. And even if it's just for a little walk. So every day I've done my physical. And this is the other thing, is when stress, call it stress or challenge hormones or something, when they start flooding the organism, they are not getting broken down if you just sit. You have to move in order to break down those hormones, stress, whatever, challenge, that. Because the thing is, with us guys, we don't necessarily get challenged emotionally anymore, because we're so in allowance. Like Tanya said, it's funny. It's like, really, guys, you're so funny. And by just saying that, you get away with so much, right? Because it expels everything by not buying into it, but the body still picks up the energy. And as transducers, transformers, our bodies are transformers. We are alchemists, not just from a mind perspective, but we're taking the energies in. Now we have to make sure that we know how to expel those stress hormones. And movement is the best way of doing it. Absolutely. And of course, it goes very well with the theme of this Lion's Gate, nature, connecting to nature, back to natural living. And natural living for me is really turning on my technology. That's natural living. I don't look at growing vegetables. Yeah, that's part of it, but that's low frequency, this reality. For me, natural living means to be able to be a multidimensional being, to turn on my technology, whatever that looks like. And of course, one of the biggest things we all know is the heart. And that's the forgiveness, that's the love, that's all of that we can exude. And then you really become that transducer. And there's nothing you need to do, just receive. So whenever you go somewhere and there's a challenge, there's stress, receive it fully without judgment. So relaxation requires time, choice, acknowledgement of free will. And also yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, I think, visiting when you're with other people, right? And Martina and I are there, you're there, I was there, Sandrine is going there, right? When you're with other people and family, yeah, you have to make your own little time for you. But when you're on someone else's time schedule and timeline, also, it does open you up to a sense of timelessness, because you're working just not in your own, oh, I have to do this now, I'm going to go exercise now, right? When you're kind of giving yourself over, like Martina said, you were allowing people to feed you, and that was nourishing, right? I think also when you're on someone else's timeline, oh, we're going to go do this today, this today, this today. They're driving. I don't need to worry about, am I going to get there on time? What time is it? It's just opens you up to that sense of timelessness, because you don't have to pay attention to it.
Well, for one thing, I'm not going to use an alarm clock, that's for sure. But I'm not using it anyways anymore. So
yeah, I haven't for many, many, many years.
Isn't that
unless I have to be at the airport at 6 a.m.
Yeah, well, that's different, yes.
Yeah.
And
there's like that ebb and flow, right? Where that time is almost like a river that can wash through you or around you. And what I found, it's also expandable and contractible. oh, I need a little bit more time to finish what I'm doing. So I'll just expand that so I have more time to get my whatever I'm trying to get done. And then, gosh, this is taking forever. Let's speed it up a little bit.
It's very funny that you come up with that, because I have noticed how I'm this slowness I have come to embrace a little bit more, in the sense that, yes, I'm still, 100% faster than anybody else probably out there, but slowness for me, it's like, I'm not doing 15 million things at once. I'm just maybe doing 4 things at once, which is already like slowing down completely. But having to notice that I also can do just one thing, and I'm slowing down to do that one thing until I can go to the next thing. And that is, I think for me, that helped me a lot also, just to pause and, okay, I don't have to run. There is no need to run. There is no need to stress. Even if it takes like 2 more minutes to finish that, it will take the 2 more minutes. It's nothing going to happen, if it's not finished in 2 more minutes. So just breathe, and, whatever it is, I'm in a sense that, yeah, this slowing down and then recognizing, focusing on it and on the task at hand, and then concentrating on it, it helped me a lot to recognize, also getting rid of one of the stress factors. It's like, this has to be done. No, why? You see.
Do you know what? I love that, because slowing down, I wouldn't even call that slowing down, to be honest, even though it makes perfect sense what you're saying. But that is part of natural living, where you're actually living in communion with what is required right now. Because any particular task does not require the time that you think you need to apply to. So for instance, sometimes if you have 3 businesses, and the one business requires maybe 5 minutes only of your time at a particular day, that's honoring what the business requires. That's really working with the energies that are presenting themselves. Yeah. Bye, Jen. See you next time. And that's really something to acknowledge again. That's, again, you're not even slowing down. You're becoming much more aware of what is required in the moment. Sometimes it's one phone call you need to do. Sometimes you need to spend a little bit more time. And this is again, you don't have to let go of anything. You just have to know what is needed at another one going. Okay, gotta work. Somebody's
Jody.
Bye.
Bye, darling. It's how much of my time, how much of my attention, my intention is required for a particular task. And that's being in communion and union with all the energies that are surrounding you and that you are actually working with. I've got a question for Earthy. Now, Earthy, you are bound to your bed or chair, or for a little bit at least, until your knee gets better, right? How is the bore out working for you? Has it already come in? How are you feeling? Are you already bored? Are you stressed that you can't do certain things, or are you just enjoying it?
Well, actually, I'm a person that I never get bored, because there's way too much in the world offered up to me. So even when I'm in a healing relationship with my new replacement, I'm still not bored. And challenges to me, like right now, I'm challenging my brain to hook up with my bionic part and work in unison together. I look at challenges as a opportunity for me to learn something. And I feel challenges like an excitement in my body, whereas I feel stress in my head and in my third eye. So I totally know the difference. And I'm actually taking this time to really look at myself, and so many subjects have been covered today of what I'm currently going through, and I could really relate in a good way of because I've had to surrender and become humble and ask for help. I cannot go to the barn. I cannot take care of the animals. I am here alone 4 days out of 7 until Rick comes home. And so it's been a total, I can't worry or stress about if the animals are not taken care of the way I do, because they're going to be okay. And when I'm back on my feet and heading out to do my responsibilities on the land here, I will be welcomed by all the animals because they've missed me so much. I mean, I have my small animals that I can tend to, but it's really been an opportunity for me to embrace some of the things about me, like, whoa, so you're really this way, Earthy, you need to step back and stop that. And it's been a very interesting growth time for me. And I've been in extreme pain and on medications, to help my body accept the bionic part, as I call it, and not reject it. And my body is not used to this, meaning I'm used to greens, and I do grow a garden, and I can't worry about my garden right now. And it's actually been, in a sense, freeing for me to experience the love from the people in this community. I've only been here 1.5 years, and the people that have come to help me. And it's all the people that have come to help me and have come to really show me their love and their compassion are all interneted with all the being in service work that I do. And so it's like proof, what you give out comes back to you. And yeah, challenges excite me, and stress hurts my third eye in my head. So does that answer everything for you, Martina?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I love it because it's almost like giving oneself permission to retreat from duty, right?
Yes.
Oneself permission.
Yes.
And that's
exactly.
the only way of true receiving. Because when you continuously give now to your animals or to your neighbors or to, you cannot receive. You can do both. Yes, you can. But that really requires a self-healed mentality, a sovereign mentality, and a self-mastered mentality. But that's the beginning. And there's always in Access, we always learn that you can't receive, don't know how to receive, you can also not manifest. Things will not manifest because you literally cannot receive them. And that starts with money. Most people who have money problems cannot receive. And they're continuously having to go, stress. And these are the people, then we're looking at you. There is no relaxation, depression, right? How many people go into depression when they are allowed to relax? How many times have we heard of people that go on holidays or come home to an environment where they can just let go? They get sick.
Yeah.
I had so many people in my life that worked overseas, stress, burn out. And as soon as they started to relax, it was like, they get sick, right? The body's overwhelmed, can't deal. It's not even a bore out. They're not even bored. They're just totally, the stress hormones are flooding everything, and then having to release, but not through movement, even just through a letting go.
This reminds me of, I was just finishing up my thesis at university, and I fell sick. But it was, it was one of them. And I went to see the doctor so that she could write me off for a few days. And I had to hand it in to the secretariat to say that I was sick for a few days. And I remember that woman was just fantastic. I arrived at her and she looked at me. She's like, "You're writing your thesis?" Because it was the time, of the year where, everybody, I'm like, And she's like, "You're sick." And I said, "Oh, I'm sick. I had fever. I was really bad. I had an infection, bladder infection, blah, 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 blah." And she looked at me and she's like, So be sick. I allow you to be sick. So the next 3 days, you're going to be sick. Go home, turn off the phone, and you're going to be sick. And I'm like, wow. And I said, I don't need any medication, right? And she's like, do you want some? And I'm like, no, because I don't like taking some. I will drink tea. And she said, just keep on the fluids, be sick, okay? And I'm like, okay. That was fantastic. Ever since that time, I have that in my mind, you know, like, Earthy, I'm not saying that you should be sick, but I can so relate to what you're going through, because I went through that when I had my car accident, the immense pain. And I'm just like, I befriended my pain, you know, I'm like, okay, here it is. I also know, and you helped me get rid of some of the exorcism that was still in my head of, you know, why I'm lugging around that thing. But it's much better since. So I totally relate to what you're going through. It's like, yeah, I would probably be doing the same. I would be lying there for 3 hours, you know, talking to my leg and my knee, and I'm like, okay, what can we do? What can we do? Okay, this is painful, so we just breathe through it and all that. So yeah, wonderful.
Yeah. And this is the time. You talk about timelessness, but we talk about also, we need to talk about the time constraints, the social construct of time that, as we said in the beginning, probably only started with the Industrial Revolution, where before that we got up with the cows and went down with the sun, that kind of thing. And that construct, that constriction into certain time frames, we have so been conditioned over the last couple of 100 years to stick within the time frame. And I think lots of people now, as without even, because lots of people don't acknowledge what's going on, just 1 second, lots of people don't acknowledge what's going on. And as that timelessness is coming in, there is a time sickness that people are experiencing.
Yeah.
Part of the stress is a time sickness, because people don't know what's going on. Their bodies, their energies are expanding, and they don't know how to deal with that.
Right.
Earthy, you wanted to say something?
Well, and Spirit revealed to me last night that I'm in a new relationship, and that each relationship takes a different amount of time. And for me not to worry about the length of the time of this relationship, meaning a healing relationship with my body. Whereas before the replacement, I was in a deteriorating relationship with my body. And now I'm in a healing relationship with my body. And there's no time limit, because there is no time for this. And Spirit showed me that it's not just that I'm healing to get past the pain. I'm actually in a sort of training, because of training the brain to connect with the artificial knee. And once I was told that, I completely felt like I went over this huge hurdle of, oh, I get it. Okay, so every relationship has no time, and it's a training of sorts. Okay, that's discipline. Oh, I could do this. Okay. Instead of just wrapped up in, whoa, there's been this huge change.
I love that, because
me too.
timelessness doesn't mean that everything happens instantly. Yeah, we mustn't fall for that, because what we can actually anchor in here is, as the soul takes over, as we're bringing more and more of our shards, parts, and avatars, I ams into, or project them into our body, that's what creates the timelessness. And from a timelessness perspective, the soul does not do time, but the soul doesn't care either. It doesn't have to be healed right now. It can be healed in 500 years' time, you know, because it hasn't got a time concept as such. But then again, we also have to appreciate, as long as we are conscious people on this planet, a part of us will always experience space and time, because that's what consciousness is.
And I realize this is also something where so many people are being hooked up on the fact of that, what is time? You know, they are so adamant about putting consciousness into a time frame, putting philosophy into a time frame, putting reasoning into a time frame, you know, because they need a beginning and an end and a middle and whatever. And I'm like, I continuously have to come back to the fact, like, when I'm in the philosophy group, you know, talking about that, because they always want to place something at the beginning. I'm like, but there is no beginning. There is no beginning and there is no end. It's, you know, it's will continuously be going on, coming into, going out to, exploding, imploding, and we are just here now for this time, for this time, but in, you know, just using it as a word, for this moment to experience it, you know, that's it. And I think we're so hooked up on this time things. Like, it's not that I don't get it. I get it as well, you know, because it has a huge thing to do in a corporate world where it's a different sense. But I mean, what is time? You know, it's nothing. It's a construct, you know, we constructed it. That's all.
It's lack of information. Yeah, we're only looking at the linear time as one piece, as if this is all of it. Time for me allows us to have an experience in a solid reality. But also there is time, we've talked about this before, there's not just time in this dimension, there's time in other dimensions, but it's just a different, you know, it's a different construct, or it's a different fluidity to it. So without time, we wouldn't have this conversation here. But as you said, there is so much more. And also the time paradox. Lots of people do not look at the time paradox. Whilst parts of us are having a conversation here, there's lots of other parts that are living at the same time simultaneously in the Neolithic times. Parts of us are living in the future, right? And all of that together. So time from a linear perspective is a waste of time to talk about. It's a bit like love, you know, without time, there is no experience, right? Without love, there is no experience. It's all of that. But we want to over-define it at times, you know, and sometimes, as you say, business, we know at 5 o'clock, we need to know that linear time, but that doesn't mean that's all it is. But I also want to throw in that the spacelessness that we are going into, yeah, because I've written down a lack of cognitive stimulation, yeah, causes stress too. And probably most of us can appreciate that, because we are seekers, we want to grow, you know, and things like that. And I do not consider that lack of that cognitive stimulation as a distraction. There's not a distraction.
No,
it can become a distraction, yes, when you are one of those compulsive seekers, and we probably all have been there. But if there is a responsible and balanced cognitive stimulation that we require as a soul, as a mature soul, any mature soul needs cognitive stimulation. That's perfectly normal for me. But the spacelessness or timelessness needs to be applied here, because, you know, we could be in a certain environment, right, Tanya, where that doesn't necessarily gets presented. So instead of reacting or making anyone wrong for it or oneself wrong for choosing it, well, you just choose to have a conversation like that, right? Or you just choose to phone somebody up who gives you that stimulation that you require. Yeah. And you don't even need a 5-hour conversation. You just sometimes need 15 minutes. Hey, let's just have a chat. And then you can expand out again. You can come down and have another level. So that knowingness, what is it that you require in order to stay out of burnout and to stay out of bore out? Because without cognitive stimulation, we do get bored. At a certain level of soul evolution, that's normal. That's normal. And yes, how do we overcome that? By choosing humans or animals or energetic appreciation by starting to talk to the trees, you know, or communion and union with everything that is, you know. So there is that spacelessness and timelessness that also helps us to get out of boredom. It's just a choice. We know what to do. Phone somebody that stimulates you again, and then you're okay again. It's in the jar, out the jar, in the jar, out the jar. And you don't want to just be in that kind. We can't do this for hours and hours and end. We could do it for a couple hours, sure, but it's not healthy either, you know? But that's, again, multidimensionality. That's balance. Because we can probably do it on a mental soul capacity, but the body would say, hey, what the fuck? I'm hungry. Can we please go and sleep now? You know, it's all of that. We've got to bring it all together.
It's
Because
interesting, like those conversations, right? The 15-minute conversations, you know, might seem like an hour long, and those multiple hour conversations seem like 15 minutes.
I agree.
Right. There's that sense of like when you're engaged and enjoying and being stimulated and, you know, sure, challenged, but that isn't necessary for that kind of, you know, timeless energy when you're just connecting with a like-minded soul, and it feels like you've known that person forever, and you just met, or you haven't seen that person in 20 years, and you fall right back into that same, you know, ease of conversation that, you know, oh gosh, we talked for an hour. What just happened? Yeah.
It's yesterday I had a situation. I met up with the one friend I always meet when I'm here. We know each other from school. And he said something absolutely beautiful. He said, it was one of those things. You thought it was an hour, and it was like 6 hours. Are you joking? You know, it wasn't just, it was one of those. And he said, when we get together, there is a timelessness. And also we don't talk in between, you know, it's just that when I'm here, we meet. And then he says, when we talk, I'm not the same person afterwards than I was before we spoke. And I'm like, that's great. We all need friends like that, you know, to have that, because this is that when you step into that timelessness, spacelessness and everything, that's when that, we call it hub of interconnectivity, right? When all the different I ams get together. And this was, yes, the avatar is speaking, but there's so much more going on. All the different, like, hey, we haven't spoken for some time, you know, and like, there's so much going on. And that takes us out of that time construct and gets us into galactic time, universal time, you know, that kind of thing.
Well, you know, the galactic calendar says it's a journey into fourth dimensional time, right? That 13-month calendar. So we have the Roman numeral time, right, that we're working with in this third dimensional reality, the construct that most of the corporate world and certainly what the stock market is following, right? Then you have the fourth dimensional time, which is the Syrian, the galactic time, right? The cycles and the rhythms and looking at things differently. So I like you said, there's time in different dimensions. So now I'm wondering, okay, what about fifth dimensional time? And what about sixth dimensional time, et cetera, right? How can we back up and expand into all of those different rhythms of time now that we're on a rhythmic day today?
We're doing it. We're actually doing it. This is not 4-dimension what we're doing. This is a conversation that goes up, down, up, down, up, down. We're playing with all the dimensions. And I think this is, we can probably safely say, is when we go beyond time, this is when we play all the different registers, all the different dimensionals, you know. And it's not that we have to sit ourselves, and now we go into the 6th dimension, now we have a conversation about it. No, it's our voice, it's our light, it's light to light. Abby said that in this Lion's Gate, it's all about communicating not from a word perspective, It's not important the words, it's the light that you're exuding. The spirit to spirit, light to light. It's that. It's all about the energy of it, you know? And then, of course, the pheromones that coming through. And lots of people, including myself, when I arrived here, I had a sore throat. Lots of people telling me about sore throats, because it's all about opening the throat chakra here, you know, bringing the sacral chakra into the throat chakra, bringing it together, having your voice heard, allowing yourself to be authentic. It's all about being authentic. And it's about being authentic, not doing authentic, you know. And you know, and this is so important, and this is why we always say it doesn't matter how long you come for 5 minutes, say nothing, you're still making a huge contribution to the energy that we are broadcasting, that we are bringing out there to whoever wants to hear it, and not even want to hear it, whoever can hear it.
I've been reading one of my favorite authors, just as I was, traveling. I reread in the middle of rereading one book, but reread another one just because of all of I've learned, right? Since I've read these books, I wanted to back up and get a different perspective, because I think, this author, his name is Roger Zelazny, spelled Zelazny. He was a San Francisco science fiction writer, a Nebula Award winner. But I read this book, Lord of Light, reread it, and it's about the prince that meditated for 1,000 years, right? This prince that was 1,000, but also the war with the gods. So he takes these stories of, the Upanishads and Mahabharata, and weaves it into a story it's really a story of timelessness, right? Because you have the board of karma, who's, deciding whether you're going to get a new body, right? So it's this reincarnational cycle, and there's sections of the book. It's like, oh, wait a minute, was that before that? Was that when he was before, or did we just jump after? There's this really interesting thing about time that he does, right? Where you don't know, oh, wait, was this 1,000 years before? Was this the war he was talking about before this guy, went into the void and then got called back in by the lords of death, right? It's just a really interesting story. And I really love the way that this author plays with light and shadow and time in his stories. He wrote this book, well, you could call it the Big Book of Amber, but it's a series of 10 books. The first 5 books follow Corwin of Amber, and the second 5 books follow his son, who is Merlin. So really interesting stories. But as everything has sprung from chaos in these Amber stories, the great-great-grandfather finds a jewel hung on a unicorn's neck and contemplates the jewel and walks a pattern and creates order or amber, right? And then between order and chaos are shadows of each, right? From chaos, the shadows get closer to order, and from order, the shadows get closer to chaos. And they have different time streams and time nature realities that, I mean, it's just, I think he drew so much from history, kind of, to me, he's sort of like a Stan Lee character, where I think Stan Lee was just sort of like an open channel for some of the galactic wars and missions and situations that had happened. I think, like this other guy was a channel for information, that had already happened, and bringing it into the common reality in a fictionalized way. So, just really fascinating the way he plays with, darkness and light and time, and time's running in one shadow this way and another shadow this way. And, so these beings live, hundreds and thousands of years old, because they can drop into a shadow where time goes much more slowly. Right. Then like shadow earth where we are now.
So
Yeah.
this is absolutely, on the 9th of July, today's the 9th of August, and you're talking about that. On the 9th of July, I put that book, Lord of Lights, one to read. So I came across it somehow because now it sparked I'm like, yeah, what? So which one do you want me to read? Shall I start first with the Lord
I
of
would
Light?
start Lord of Light. Yeah.
Okay,
You
good.
know,
It's one to
if
read
that's
it.
already
Thanks.
on your radar, start there.
Fair. Okay, good.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have no idea where I think I remember it's just a month ago, but I pick up these things and then I'm like, okay, that, and yes. Okay, cool.
It's really fascinating. Really, it's a good story, first of all, and he's a great writer. But it's really fascinating to look at, you know, as I'm getting more information, right, downloaded from my God self, right, and my energetic team, and also understanding, you know, some of the fallen angelics and Anunnaki, right, and the way that they've played with humans. It's just fascinating. I think you'll be like, oh wow, yeah, that resonates.
Cool.
Sandrine?
Yeah.
I said, cool.
Oh, cool. Now, let me share something interesting as well. I had one of those cognitive inspiration chats with one of my friends in the States, Dave. And we were talking about the Lionsgate. It was before the Lionsgate, and I was talking about time or something. And then what started to happen was very peculiar. So I was sitting and we were talking about, he was telling me a dream that he was falling into something and, I couldn't get out, and I said, well, it sounds a little bit that you were falling through timelines, all the way into the inner earth to bring those guys through so that we can all, graduate at the same timeline, So that was the thing. And we're talking about time, and then we're talking about, we are the spiders weaving the web, and all the different lines of the spider web would be the timelines. And as the spider goes from one to the next, it brings that time together, all the timelines, bringing them together. So we're talking about that. And then, being a knitter, and, we have more knitters and crocheters in here. And I said, and then all of a sudden, what started to happen, my hand was doing this. I said, Dave, I don't know. This is kind of weird. I mean, yes, I could stop it, but my hand was doing this. I said, my hand's moving weirdly. And I said, hang on a second. And he was just holding space, and that's an inspirational conversation. So he was just holding space. And he said, so what's going on? And I said, okay. So what I'm getting is, I said, when you need to pull over, not that he would know, when you need to pull over and you have, let's say you have a couple of mistakes in it, right? What you do is you unravel the yarn and you roll it into a ball, right? To renew it. You don't have to, but that's what you do. Sometimes, in the old days, people didn't have enough wool, so they would take old pullovers, take them apart. We did this all the time and knit something new. So I was doing this and it didn't stop. I said, as I was telling him, and he said, oh, the fabric of time. And he just said the fabric of time. That came to him. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm unraveling the fabric of time here. I was doing this and this, and I said, it didn't stop. And then all of a sudden, when a ball was big enough, it started going the other way. I said, Dave, it's going the other way. This is so fucking weird, right? It's going the other way. And this whole thing was going on for about 10 minutes until it stopped. And the opposite of putting it all together was putting it back out again. So it was all connected to the time weave, to that time fabric, as he mentioned it. So it was so useful having this conversation with somebody who was holding space and thrown in a couple of words, because one thing led to the next, as we talked about that. And there was so much healing in this, just me doing that. And it was even the next day, my mum said that it was one of the first nights she actually slept for 6 hours. Like, wow, I immediately thought of that, you know, and I told her, and she's like, okay, all right then. But anyway, I thought I had to share that. But how
Love it.
cool. And was it my imagination? Well, of course it was my imagination. The pictures came to me, but was it the excitement, the joy that came through, and Dave on the other side being excited and joyful? Oh my God, this is what we do, time travelers, and unraveling. Beautiful, beautiful. So yes. And why am I saying this? Because we're talking about channeling last time, you know, and channeling is changing. Channeling is changing. It's not just you sitting there closing your eyes and somebody's coming through. I mean, that's been changing for a long time, right? It could be that I was channeling something, that healing with my hands, and or with your drawings, or, you know, with anything. So that timelessness, and that different way of looking at energy takes out the boredom that can hit us at times now. We just have to rethink, what else can I add to my life? And sometimes, who else can I add to my life? Know the people. And we have an unspoken rule in this group. And let me remind everyone, if anyone gets stuck in a place where they're trying to unravel their knitting and get stuck, there's another fuck. Permission to call anyone on this group to say, hey, can you ask me a question? I'm stuck. No, facilitate the shit out of me, or tell me your story and, you know, throw up on me, you know, all your crap. No, that too, if you want to, but just ask me a question. I'm stuck somewhere. And I have people I can do that with. You know, I'm stuck somewhere, ask me a question. And then you just ask a question from your psychic, you know, telepathy, blah, blah. And if you're wrong, you're wrong. But most of the times you're actually not. And that's exactly what I needed to hear. Permission to everyone to do that. WhatsApp, Messenger, Skype, whatever that is. And that's part of that communion and union. That's part of asking. Ask and you will be given. Don't struggle on your own. It's not necessary. The responsibility comes from you to ask for help, to ask, you know, and that's really, really important, because that's the choice. That's the free will that we have. And that's honoring oneself, and that's honoring also the person you're asking, because you obviously value, you know, their input. And also, I think the other thing is the burnout, the bore out, the hypo-stress, the hyper-stress, all of that, it's not necessary. Yeah, we don't have to be stressed anymore. This is old paradigm. There's a challenge, yes. Every challenge has a possibility as an opposite. And then it's a question, are you choosing any other possibilities? What are you choosing? What or who can I add to my life in order to get out of that stuck state? And that just expands very, very quickly. It's almost just one question, 5 minutes. Doesn't even have to be a conversation, could be a WhatsApp, right? Just that one question blows out the cobwebs and just opens up a different awareness. And also, there's no projection when you ask a question. It might be implied, but a question, we always talked about that. What is a question? We don't want to have a projection turned into a question mark. No. It's got to be an open question. What else is possible? Sometimes that's all it takes. What else is possible? Who does it belong to? That kind of stuff. What else is there that you haven't considered yet? You know? Yeah. Let me see what else I've written down here.
Well, I think too, you know, just talking to Earthy, right, who's logged off now, about her healing journey, right, being sedentary. The same thing happened to me, right? I had to sit still with a cast on my foot for 3 weeks, with a boot and a shoe, and couldn't put pressure on my foot really, right? So I'm the same as her. I don't get bored. I think there's just too many interesting things to see and do, and yeah, but that, having to ask for help, right? Where my husband said, "Wow, I see all the things that you do around here now," right? Just because I wasn't doing them, not taking the dog out, not, shopping, not, doing anything except my own thing. Yeah.
And how
So,
many times do we expect our partners or family members, whatever, to acknowledge what we're doing without giving them a chance, an opportunity to even see it?
mhm,
Because by the time they think, oh, I could do it, you've already done it.
mhm.
That's that overgiving,
Yeah.
that doesn't allow receiving,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is where the body's amazing. And I've got the same with my nutrition thing, It's like, step back. And then, coming here, I'm thinking I was going to be it could be quite interesting, to come in and say this and this and this, what I usually do every year, I don't do. Perfectly fine. Everyone is accommodating, they still do their own thing, but it all works, because I know it's going to work, because why would it not?
It's just your flow and timing now, where you are now. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, what did I write down with the one thing? The thoughts are equal to the need to be active.
Mm.
Thoughts are equal to the need to be active. And I would almost extend that it's not just the thought, the soul essence are equal to the need to be active. And then there is this sentence in itself can be discussed for 3 hours, yeah, because you can go into looking what is active, what does it actually mean? Is this a short-term soul agenda? Is it a long-term soul agenda? Because everything that originates officially here, that doesn't have its origin here in this reality. Just like the body is actually a projection of the etheric body, of the soul and everything, So everything starts in other dimensions and comes through here. The seeding is not necessarily here. It's in other dimensions until it gets materialized here. So there's a lot to be drawn on that. And again, I think that leads us slightly back to an active mind requires an outlet. Back to compulsive creation. There's nothing wrong with that. And look at our kids nowadays. They can't even sit still because there's nothing wrong with that. We need to move. The body needs to move,
On that, because this is something that my friend with the kids, where I'm the godmother, so they are very active. Also, I sometimes have the feeling that she's doing too much, that she's engaging them, because she's also a doer, and I'm like, can they just sit down for like 5 minutes and rest? Because I have also the feeling that, they're constantly doing stuff. But it's not because they are, they cannot concentrate at all. It's just that they want to do, one of them is very active and the other one is very physically active. They're running outside all the time. They are either they're either horse riding or then outside in the yard, and with the dogs and with the cats, and they okay, the 5 minutes where they are sitting is like on the iPad, right? Because they want to watch their comics and their YouTube thingy that they want to watch. That is when they calm down. And then I'm going in like this. Yeah, but can they not, but for myself, I'm not saying it like, can they not just do something without the iPad or stuff like that? And then I'm catching myself at home, like, what am I doing to relax? I also put on the bloody iPad with the YouTube, whatever nonsense that I want to watch at that moment. No. And I'm like, come on, this is, this maybe in these times we are living right now, there are other things that are needed. These kids are in no way ADS or have not had no need to be medicated or whatever. They are very healthy. They have never been sick, actually, apart from maybe a flu or something like that. But otherwise, they're healthy as fit as fiddles. So just let them run. Yes. So I'm just in my head like, just let them run, whatever, just let them do. They want to move, let's move, because maybe in a few years' time they are not allowed to be moving anymore, because then they have to sit down, all the time and be sitting just like us now in front of the computer, like for the next 9 hours of the day, you see.
Yeah. I also think we need to, do we ever not move? That's the thing. Do we ever not move? We breathe, right? The continuous flow of breath. So I think, and this is where it comes back to the belief system or to the, it's like as soon as you take away the significance of not moving or the significance of moving, you can actually, you free yourself to do and be whatever you want to be and do at the time. If we look at Earthy, she's showing us, or Tanya, when you were not able to move, right? How much cognitive stimulation did you allow in order to stay in movement, right? That's always movement. And when you are literally sitting on the couch here right now and not move, the other parts of you are moving continuously. And I think there is balance in that multidimensionality. When you allow yourself to have an injury and to say, okay, I'm still now, I think in order to maintain the homeostasis of who we are as multidimensional beings, the other parts are taking over and moving more, because everything has to be in balance. So if we just take away that significance of moving or not moving, everything can just do what you have to do, that kind of thing. And that can be explored most probably in much more length to really, but I think it's useful to really look at every point of view that we have and put a multidimensional hat on it. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, there's something else going on. Because do you ever, from a molecular structure, from a cell structure, the blood flows continuously, right? Up, down.
And the cells continue to replicate.
The cell needs to swim. So it's innately in us that we have to move. And I think the more we acknowledge ourselves as movers and shakers, the more fluidity and flexibility comes into that.
My dad's neighbor, they have a little gathering on Monday nights with their community in their little condo. Thankfully they've found a nice little community. I'm glad about that. But his neighbor was talking about someone he knew who was a blind long jumper and was a world record holder for long jump. And we were talking about exactly that, right? Engaging those other senses, right? This person couldn't see, but he knew how many steps from the little stripe he stood on to when he had to jump, but all of those other senses took over, right? That allowed him to project himself farther than anyone else had. So I think that's, interesting, the way that when we don't have one sense, in this case, ability to fully move our bodies the way we usually do, right? Those other senses engage, right? The cognitive senses and the hearing and, you know, the skin, you know, will prickle up at information coming through. Yeah.
Absolutely. And, you know, we talk about sixth sense, which is ridiculous, really, because we got about 300 and more. And all of those are switching on now, you know, and that in itself creates so much movement, you know, like what we could call that hormonal stress again. That needs an outlet. And it could be a conversation, it could be singing, it could be drawing, it could be going for a run, for a walk, or anything like that, you know. So I think I personally, from my personal perspective at the moment, for me, movement is more important than it's ever been, so that I can bring through those energies that are coming through.
Yeah, for me, it really helped to be in the pool, right? Being able to move my body in all different directions, right? In a flow that I still quite can't when I'm standing on my own 2 feet.
Yeah, and movement doesn't just involve the feet. You know, you could be moving like this. You know, you could be doing this, up, down, la la, talking with your hands like I do all the time. That's part of that too. So there's so much to be explored. But if we go into judgment of what this is good, this is bad, you know, then we forget about all of that. And we get out of the communion of all the possibilities, the infinite possibilities that are available to us. And of course, as the other word, the holiday, right? We go on holiday. What does that mean? Holy day. The holy day, like the Sunday used to be the day where you just stop the work and all of that. Now we can't, the physical work like in the old days. I mean, nowadays we get more stressed out going on holidays, right? Because the holidays, like, oh God, adventure, let's do it. What else can we cram in, you know, and all of that. Now this is a very good way of looking at, hey, hang on a second, you know, I can't be bored on my holy days where I should actually just relax. What does that tell me about the other days that I'm actually, what kind of activity am I doing? Am I really enjoy of what I'm doing? And of course, this is again with this timelessness, with all the energy that are coming in, lots and lots of people are starting to challenge their business journeys. And is this really still what I need to do? And sometimes it's really just a matter of what can I add to my life? Because we are getting faster and faster and faster, and because our technology switches on. So we can work much more efficient now. Absolutely.
Well, and I think also making every day a holiday, right? Doing something that brings you joy and something you want to do, right? Every day, even if it's only for 5 or 10 minutes, right? To savor that joy, right? And bring that, you know, circulate that back into your reality, because joy grows. You do something joyful and acknowledge it, right? You're going to have more joy the next time and more joy. So I think it's perpetual growth there.
And those endorphins are like flea, right? They jump onto others, you know. So we have let those joyful endorphins jump onto others, you know. And that's really where's the bore out here, right? Where's the stress in any of that? It's just sometimes a perpetual reminder. We have to, okay, there's more to, am I stuck in this one-dimensional point of view here, or what can I add? And even if it's just an energetic perspective that I can add. And as I said before, this is what these shows are all about, to remind each other that there's so much more out there, and to create that communion and union within oneself, in service to the greater plan. And unless we have anything else, we're probably going to leave it at that. Yeah. I think we covered a lot, but it was a nice, big, wide thing. And, so next week I'll be back. And again, anyone has any topics, by all means, throw them in. And we'll take it from there. Recording is going out, and I thank everyone who's been on board today. Well, love you, and I'll see you soon. Happy holidays.
Thanks.
Bye. Thank you.
Care.
Bye.